So concept of supply chain management is very critical in most organizations. And this concept has been there for a very long time, in that we are saying for small businesses to be able to survive in the industry, they must understand what happens in the supply chain management. And when you talk about supply chain management, we are saying supply chain management involves the flow of products from the customer, from the supplier up to the customer or the final consumers. We are also saying we also track the flow of information. And when you are talking about information, information flows both towards the supplier's side and towards the customer's side. So supply chain involves a lot of issues. For example, it involves controlling, planning, designing, and implementing of business processes concerning with procurement, manufacturing, sales to meet the functions of a business. Look at a scenario where we have a chain. A chain in typical example, we can say it is a series of events that have been organized in a certain way so that at the end of the day, you are able to achieve as something that you want to achieve. So supply chain helps that in that we are able to control the resources that we have. And remember, resources are very limited, and we use what we have to maximize our potential. And this can also be done by planning. And that is why when you look at most organizations, they plan for what they are going to produce. For example, in manufacturing, they have to plan for the raw materials. They have to plan for the machines. And once they plan for the machines, they plan for the work in progress and also plan for the finished product. And after after producing finished products, they also need to plan for distribution on how they are going to distribute the products to their customers. Then you're also looking at design, and supply chain management also takes a keen interest on the design. And for example, the design of the machines that are going to be used during production, the design of maybe the infrastructure that is very critical when you are producing or distributing items to customers. You're also looking at the implementation process. How are you going to implement processes within supply chain management for purposes of achieving your goal as an organization? And that also takes us to very critical components of supply chain management. And one of the components we are saying is a component like procurement. Procurement has been there for a very long time. And the issue of procurement is to be able to acquire goods, works, or services for purposes of achieving operational efficiency within the organization. And procurement is a process that has to be followed for you to be able to maximize your potential as an organization. If you fail to follow the procurement process, then most companies fail, and it brings a lot of scandals to some of those organizations. A typical example is KEMSA. They've been having issues with the procurement process, and that has raised a lot of eyebrow. So procurement is very critical because procurement supports most businesses to realize their full capacity. Then we are talking about manufacturing. Manufacturing is also another component that is very critical. And manufacturing, we are saying, they are the ones who are in charge of converting raw materials into finished products or convert inputs into outputs through a transformation process. Then we are also talking about distribution as another component of supply chain management. And distribution is concerned with ensuring that products reach customers when they want them. And that is why when you look at most companies, they have distribution centers that are near the customers. And the essence of having these distribution centers is to be able to sell and meet the business function. Supply and demand management also is another one. Remember, the market forces are controlled by demand and supply. So you need to create an equilibrium between supply and demand so that you do not oversupply when the demand is low, or you do not undersupply when the demand is high. And you also need to look at issues like sourcing for raw materials. So when you are sourcing for raw materials, you are looking at the best raw material that can maximize your potential in terms of producing quality materials for your customers. And remember, we have different concepts in supply chain management that ensures that once you produce an item, you produce it with zero defects. For example, the just-in-time concept, so that you need to be right the first time, so that you don't have a lot of wastages in the organization. We're also looking at components and parts when you're dealing with technical goods, for example, vehicles, for example, machines. You need to look at the material repairs and operations, where you need to have some of those spare parts to ensure no interruption during production. And in the event of maintenance, you are maintaining your machines so that your machines become effective. Then we're also looking at inventory tracking and storage. For you to be successful, you need to track your inventory, because if you don't do that, most employees end up stealing those inventories and they collude with customers and defraud your company. Therefore, you need to track. For example, when you go to supermarkets today, you find that they have radio frequency identification devices, in that in the event you steal something, and when you are going to exit, the RFID will always make noise and you will be caught. Other organizations also have decided to install cameras for purposes of monitoring what the employees are doing together with the customers when they come on board. Then another way of ensuring that your business is effective is the issue of storage. Remember, you are storing your items so that in the event you have unplanned demand, you can always satisfy your customers. Because remember, demand is something that you don't know as an organization. Once in a while, you can get a lot of customers who are seeking for a particular product, but because you do not have that product, the customers end up getting dissatisfied. And that is what led to some companies closing, like Tuskys, like Uchumi Supermarket, like Nakumatt, where customers wanted some items, but they were not able to get some of those items. Then we are saying supply chain must address complex interdependency by its broad nature. Remember, when you're talking about supply chain management, we are talking about different webs or different networks that have been combined together to perform a certain task. For example, look at the suppliers. The suppliers are also in their own organization and they have their own networks there. We have the manufacturing firms. When you look at the manufacturing firms, they also have their own networks. When you look at the customers, they also have their own networks. So all these networks are put together to work towards a common goal. For example, let me give you an example. We have a company that is producing cooking oil. Let's say Bidco produces cooking oil. So they need to depend from the suppliers. They need to depend on the suppliers of sunflower, so that they get suppliers of sunflower who will bring the raw materials to them. But the supplier also has another supplier, maybe the farmer, who is going to bring the sunflower to his or her business premise. Once they collect enough sunflower, the supplier now will decide to take the raw material to the manufacturing farm. Once the manufacturing farm gets the raw material, They will squeeze the sunflower so that it produces oil. Once it produces the oil, they will do what is called value addition in the oil that they have squeezed from the sunflower. And when that is the case, then they will have to repack the oil. They will have to put some preservatives. They will have to label the oil. They will have to package the oil. And once they package, then they distribute the finished products to the customer. And the customer here is maybe a supermarket. Once the supermarket receives these products, they will have to store the products in their warehouse and push it into the customer cycle. Maybe the customer has another hotel somewhere. They will come and buy the sunflower oil, use the sunflower oil to cook for their customers. And once they have the waste sunflower oil, they also have another customer who is going to take the waste oil to start another process. Remember, a finished product can be a raw product for another product. Hope you have understood what I'm saying.
Yes, Dan.
So the supply chain management professions must incorporate and collaborate with suppliers and service providers. For you to succeed in this industry as small, medium enterprises, you need to work hand in hand with other key players in the industry, because you will have to gather resources together so that you do not have any interruptions when you are producing goods, works, or services. You also need to ensure that you incorporate your suppliers in your production process so that your suppliers are well aware of what you expect at the end of the day. Then we are saying it also helps you to have what is called material flow. When you collaborate with your suppliers, you will have material flow, and this will lead to no interruptions during the production process. Remember, suppliers are very critical for supporting your business. So you need to treat your suppliers with a lot of care so that they don't get disappointed. So in the event of paying your suppliers, ensure you pay your suppliers on time so that they get motivated to bring more and more. Then we're also talking about logistics. Logistics is a very common term and has been used in organizations for a very long time. So the concept of logistics is all about movement. And when you hear logistics, always refer to movement. So logistics is the process of moving items from the point of production to the point of consumption. And somewhere along the way, you need to store the items, you need to distribute them, you need to package them so that those items will reach the point of destination. So the management of the flow of goods and supplies involves information data and paperwork between two entities or sites, which is referred to as logistics. For example, let me give you an example. You have procured items from China, and these items have reached the port of Mombasa. Those items are cleared by customs, and once they are cleared, then the items start the movement process. So you look for a logistics company that is going to do the logistics for you. Maybe you can decide to use the SGR, and once the goods reach in Nairobi, and the goods are supposed to go to maybe Kakamega, you also pay the trailers that will do that work for you. So logistics is in charge of ensuring that those goods are able to reach their destination without any form of delays. Therefore, logistics plays a very important role. When you go to the airports and the dry ports and the seaports, you will always get a lot of logistics companies that do that on behalf of the customers. And they are always referred to as the freight forwarders. and that is their work, or the clearing and forwarding agents who do that work on your behalf. The transfer of raw materials supplies from the supplier to the factory or production centers, and the dispatch of finished items from the factory to the point of delivery to consumers is a typical example of the post-purchasing function. And when you look at logistics also, we need not to forget that transportation works hand in hand with logistics, but some people confuse logistics to transportation. Logistics is totally different from transportation because logistics is broader in terms of scope compared to transportation. Transportation basically is movement from one place to another. And here you can use various forms of transportation. You can decide to use rail transport. You can decide to use road transport. You can decide to use ship or air transport. Then we're also looking at warehousing. And warehousing is all about storage. And for your business to survive, we are saying you need to have at least a warehouse or a store. A warehouse also is different from a store because a warehouse is bigger in terms of capacity. And a store basically is for smaller items that are used every day. So we have different types of warehouses that we can have. For example, we have the bonded warehouse. And we are saying bonded warehouse is a warehouse where items are kept as they wait to be cleared by customs. And some of these bonded warehouses or customs warehouse are always near the ports. And we are saying we have three types of ports. We have the airport, we have the seaport, and we have the dry port. Where do you stay?
I stay near the airport.
Oh,
And the dry
Embakasi.
Embakasi.
Okay, when you
I
go
stay near
to
the airport at the SGR, Imara Daima.
Oh, Imara Daima. When you go to opposite Imara Daima, there's a dry port there.
Yes.
Kumbusho jina. ICDL. ICDL, Internal Container Terminal Port.
Depot.
Depot, yes. So that is a dry port. But when you go inside the airport, they also have the airport. And when you go to Mombasa, we have a seaport. So yeah. The second category of warehouse is a public warehouse. And a public warehouse is a warehouse that is fully owned by the government. And the work of government is to rent the warehouses for businesses so that they pay something small while using the warehouses. Then we also have another form of warehouse, which is the private warehouses. Private warehouses are owned by individual companies, and their main focus is to store their products as they await for demand from customers. Then we also have cooperative warehouses. These are warehouses that have been established by these cooperative societies for purposes of benefiting their members. Remember, cooperative societies or SACCOs are normally founded by members of a particular organization. For example, farmers can come together to organize themselves and come up with a cooperative society for purposes of their business. However, some of these cooperative societies can also, cooperative warehouses can also rent to non-members, but the non-members normally pay a very huge amount when they want to use those warehouses. Then we are looking at other issues like vendors. We are talking about agents. And agents also are very critical in these supply chain networks because they work on behalf of maybe the company or behalf of the supplier to deliver goods, to transport goods, to store goods, and other processes. Then we also have agents like the freight forwarders that I've talked about. These are in charge of ensuring that they clear items from customs and they forward it to their customers. We have packers. These are companies who are in charge of breaking bulk and repacking them again into smaller quantities, then taking them to the customers. Then we have, remember, we are talking about packers because some of these items come in bulk. And if they come in bulk, we need to divide them into smaller packages so that they can be easily transported to various destinations. And the work of packers is to do that. Then we have customs department. This is in charge of ensuring that items are cleared by customs quickly. Then we can also look at the distributors. They are in charge of ensuring that they distribute these items to various locations. And most of the time we interact with distributors on our day-to-day basis. And a typical example is distributors for milk and bread. Every day you interact with some of those distributors, and their work is to ensure that they take products directly to customers. Then we have logistics service providers. We have different companies that provide logistics services. For example, we have a company like Signal. We have a company like Signal. And Signal, we are saying, so we are saying we have different logistics partners that are very critical in organizations. And these partners, we are saying, for example, I was talking about Signal. Signal is a logistics company, and their main focus is basically logistics. We have other companies like Roy Transporters, who are also logistics providers. Any logistics provider that you know? Hello? Any partner that you know? Okay, let's continue. So let's look at the drivers of supply chain management. So we are saying drivers of supply chain management. These are some of the activities or components that have supported supply chain management for a very long time. And these drivers ensure that every day we are improving the supply chain day by day, continuous improvement of supply chain. So the decision you make in response to supply chain drivers determines the supply chain capability. So remember, if you don't make a decision to support supply chain management, then you end up failing as an. So we are saying that we have 5 traditional drivers that can help us to adjust in our supply chain capability. And when you talk about supply chain capability, we are saying this is like capacity. What can we do in supply chain? And one of the things that we are also looking at is the issue of efficiency and responsiveness in supply chain management. So the drivers will help us to make critical decisions that will support supply chain management. So the first driver that is very critical is production. Production. And remember, production is the process of converting inputs into various outputs. So, for example, you want to produce bread. We have different inputs that you need to have. For example, you need to have flour, you need to have sugar, you need to have water, you need to have margarine, you need to have labor. So all those are inputs. So these inputs are taken into a process which is called the transformation process. And once we have the transformation, then we come up with the finished product. What will be the finished product? The finished product will either be the bread, or later you can have breadcrumbs from the waste that you get in the bread. So it is important for you to maximize your potential in supply chain management. You need to maintain production efficiency by ensuring that you optimize your capacity in your employees, in the machines that you have. And at the end of the day, you'll be increasing the productivity. You also need to look at employing flexibility manufacturing techniques. Remember, because of technology, we have different methods that can be used in production, or techniques that can be used in production. Depending on what you want to produce, we always look at methods that are flexible, and you can easily manipulate this method to maximize. So corporations can produce in many smaller factories located near the main distribution centers. So you can decide to have smaller companies that are near the distribution centers, so that you don't centralize all your production in one area. Look at these companies that are big. They have literally different productions in different locations, so that they can maximize their productivity. Then we are saying the other issue is to reduce the delivery time in the various distribution locations. So a good example is Brookside. We can say they have different centers of distribution. So once they produce the milk in Nairobi, they take the milk to various parts of the country. And every day you get the milk fresh from the factory. Then companies can create factories with minimum extra capacity and optimize factories to manufacture a limited variety of things if efficiency is desired. So you don't need to overproduce. You need to produce some small items that can realize your potential. You can maximize your efficiency, so that you know and understand what you do and give your customers the best in terms of quality products and good output. The other driver is inventory. If you do not have inventory in your business, then that becomes an issue. And inventory is another name for stock. You need to maintain optimum stock for your business. You need to maintain optimum stock for your business, so that you do not have overstock or understock. The other thing about stock is you need to keep stock that is not going to maybe bring issues by tying up your capital. You need to just put optimum stock, so that you don't have a lot of stock that will make you to be broke, that will make you not to realize your objective. And remember, when you have high stock, sometimes it attracts people to start stealing from you. And that is why you need to have different storage areas in different locations so that you can redistribute your inventory to those locations and ensure we have little material handling so that the items don't get damaged along the way. Then the other thing is location. Location plays an advantage to your business. For example, if you are operating a fast food business, you need to be in various locations, for example, the central business district, so that you can attract the mass number of customers who pass through there every day. But if you are starting another business, you can look at, for example, in a supermarket, you can look for a place that is in the outskirts of Nairobi, CBD, where when customers want to come to your location, there's a good parking space, there's a good environment where they can interact, maybe have some fun, and at the same time buy to your organization. Then you're also looking at e-commerce as a way of ensuring that you can reach a wider number of customers. And e-commerce has allowed customers to be able to purchase items online. So you don't need customers to come physically to your organizations to buy. They can always buy through the online platforms, and you deliver the products to the customers at their doorstep. Another driver is transportation. And transportation, we can look at the various forms of transportation. And one of the examples here is air transport, which is always the most expensive mode of transport, but also at the same time, it is the fastest mode of transport. For example, when you are transporting perishable goods that require the shortest time possible to be transported, you can always use air transport. And when you have bulky products that are not light, you can still use air transport. Then when you want to capitalize on economies of scale, maybe you are transporting items from China or other parts of the world, you can still use water transport because it is economical compared to other modes of transport. If you are transporting cargo from Mombasa to Nairobi, instead of using road transport, you can decide to use the SGR that will carry the goods at a go. So transportation also is an enabler or a driver to supply chain management. The other driver we can talk about is data. And data here, we are talking about information. And information is powerful. When you have information in place, you can control the world around you, because many people shy away from getting relevant information about what happens around them. So if you can capitalize on data as supply chain management, then it means you'll be able to get exactly what the customers want, and this will be a game changer that will help you shape the industry. And information or data can also be exchanged, maybe from the manufacturer to the wholesaler, to the retailer, and finally to the customer, and vice versa. And the other thing that we can also talk about is about technological development and information flow. Because of technology advancement, companies have been able to communicate more easily. Companies have been able to innovate new products. Companies have been able to do their demand forecasting well. And at the end of the day, you find that you don't have issues of lack of stock or stock items in your organization. And because of the internet era also, it has been made very easy for customers to get the relevant information that they want. So what they just need to do is to log into the company's system and then be able to get all the information that they want. Another driver that is very critical is innovation. Innovation. And innovation is new ideas. You need to come up with new ideas for your products or your services. And these ideas always shape how you do things. It leads to what we call continuous improvement every day, because you are giving your employees a chance to come up with new innovations, to come up with new ideas, and share those ideas to the business for the advantages the business is going to get from them. And this basically helps to empower employees to become better versions of themselves. Then we are talking about partnership and collaboration. Partnership and collaboration. Remember, we enter into partnerships with various firms, or we collaborate for a common goal with various institutions, or you can collaborate with a supplier, you can collaborate with another firm for purposes of doing something together. And this also has shaped different supply chain activities to ensure that all of them achieve by winning and winning. So it's a win-win situation for all the stakeholders within the organization. The other thing that is very common is environmental challenges calling for new ways of doing things. Remember, we have a paradigm shift. Every time we have a paradigm shift that is affecting most businesses, and this shift must be taken care of by adapting to the new environmental changes. And this will help you to maximize your potential as a company by preparing in advance. In the event something changes or a new technology comes up, then you can always adapt the new technology. Look at issues like sustainable procurement that are there with us today. Companies are trying their best to be sustainable, both in the short run and in the long run. So I want us to stop there for today, so that we can, next time when we come,